You've got fantasy football drafts happening imminently, and we've got the answers to help you win it all in 2024. This is Fantasy Sanctuary. I'm Tom Strachan, and we've been asking fantasy football experts for their favorite free picks in drafts. Today, we've got Andrew Erickson, Fantasy Pros, here to give you his free players he wants in every single draft this year. Andrew, matter of days away from the NFL season now. How are you feeling as we get really close to the NFL kicking off?
I feel like my head is spinning, and I lay awake at night saying, did I prep for the show? How many shows am I doing today? Did I do this article? But I mean, it could not be more fun. This is the most fun time of year. I kind of forgot about how fun it is right up to during the preseason. This is when everybody is asking for fantasy advice. Everybody. I mean, the clicks, the clickbait, the sleepers, the breakouts, the busts. Absolutely love it. And of course, we're going to talk must draft players here today. So I'm super excited. Tom, thanks again for having me on.
And we're going to start with one of the most must draft players out there. It is Jayden Daniels. Andrew, if Jayden Daniels was 20 pounds heavier, do you think the hype would just be even more insane? This is a guy who threw for 3,800 yards, 40 touchdowns in his final season at LSU, also rushed for 1,250 yards and 10 touchdowns, 11.2 rush attempts per game. If he was 20 pounds heavier, how high would people be taking him in drafts?
He'd be holding hands with Anthony Richardson. And the thing with him compared to Richardson, just think about it. Richardson didn't even play 4 games fully last year, and he's already rocketed up to round 5 pick in redraft leagues because of the immense upside he offers. Now, again, like you said, built a little bit differently. Richardson has that Cam Newton type of build, but Jayden Daniels has that Lamar Jackson type of build, the slenderness, the rushing that he can offer. And I think when you compare Daniels versus Richardson, again, the body types are different, but coming in as polished passers, I think Daniels is coming in as a much better passer than Richardson did, especially just based on the amount of games and experience he had at the college level. We've been burned with these mobile quarterbacks the last couple of years, the Malik Willises, the Trey Lances, Richardson to an extent. And what do those guys all have in common? You know, again, not the most polished passers, and they just didn't have the experience. They didn't get the reps just throwing the ball. That's the complete opposite with Jayden Daniels. So maybe that's kind of the reason why we're not as gung-ho, at least the market's not as gung-ho on drafting Jayden Daniels, because, look, in almost any other class, he would have been the easy slam dunk 101. Just happened to be in the same class with Caleb Williams, who has been viewed as this generational talent for so long. Again, I think Caleb Williams is going to be great, but the fact that he was drafted first, I think that just makes people in their minds think, well, Jayden Daniels can't be as good, given his situation. But based on the rushing that he can offer, again, he averaged just the same amount of rushing yards as Anthony Richardson did at the college level. But then you're layering on the passing, the offense with Cliff Kingsbury. We've seen him had success with Kyler Murray as a rookie, who was the QB7 his rookie year, top 12 in points per game. Insane rusher. He won Offensive Rookie of the Year that year. So I got my bags packed plus 600 for Jayden Daniels to win Offensive Rookie of the Year. And that means I'm going to be drafting him, especially because he tends to go as a late round quarterback. So that's why I love late round quarterback this year. And the guy I'm always circling is a Mr. Jayden Daniels.
Yeah, one of the things people throw against him is the fact that he spent 5 years in college, but we are going to see that for at least another year or so because of the way that COVID interrupted these college seasons for so many of these athletes. But for Jayden Daniels, that really helped him become more well-rounded as a passer. Like, he had seasons where he was passing for just around 3,000 yards, and then he exploded with LSU in that last one. But the cheat code that he gives you in terms of rushing is just undeniable. When you look across the different fantasy platforms, on CBS, he goes at pick 108, ESPN 110, NFL 104, Yahoo pick 80, by far the most aggressive of them. Do you think that there's a world where now that Jahan Dotson's been traded to the Eagles, this signifies the Commanders wanting to be more run heavy and maybe putting a cap on what Jayden Daniels does in his first year? Or do you think that this was a case of Jahan Dotson didn't fit what they wanted to do and they're just freeing up targets for someone like Terry McLaurin, who seems to have a really good fit with Jayden Daniels?
Yeah, it was weird. We obviously talk about the preseason games on the Fantasy Pro show that we do together. And when we talked about Jahan Dotson, it was always kind of weird, his usage during the preseason. Like, he's running a lot of reps. Why is he out there still? They're not with the starters. So it seemed like they were more or less showcasing him to other teams, and they ended up dealing him. So I was always kind of questioning the Dotson role, especially with how it overlapped with what we were expecting from Luke McCaffrey, right? This is a guy they drafted, this current regime drafted Luke McCaffrey in the end of the third round. Kind of a surprising pick, but at Rice, he was a great slot receiver. So it seems like he's going to slide in. Again, first thing, one of the first episodes we talked about was the Luke McCaffrey breakfast meme with Jayden Daniels and how they were getting together first at the facility. Well, oh baby, like this is starting to pick up some steam here. So I think this is a good opportunity for Luke McCaffrey to potentially take over a starting role. And I don't think it means that they're going to be more run heavy. I know they like the running backs, but they like using those guys in the passing game. Like, why go get a guy like Austin Eckler if you want to just pound the rock? That Eckler doesn't really fit that type of vibe. So I think the running backs can be productive in the passing game. I think McCord will continue to be that alpha. And then Derek Brown is driving the Brandon Ayuk is going to the Washington Commanders bus, to the dismay of Chris Welsh, our 49ers in-house fan and analyst. So that's the upside play, that they're setting the stage to acquire Brandon Ayuk in a trade and putting these guys that played together at Arizona State back together, which would just send Jayden Daniels to the absolute moon. So that would be ideal. But I think just moving on from Dotson is more about Dotson, the player, and him not being a great fit for what they want to do offensively, and just they're ready to move on. A former first round pick that, I mean, honestly, it's only a couple more days till we see Treylon Burks probably get moved too from the same class. So he's kind of treading in that same direction. But I think that he's injured again. So we'll see if he can get dealt.
Yeah, for me, this just comes back to, as long as Jayden Daniels is out there and rushing, he's going to end up finishing as a top 8, top 7 quarterback. And right now, he's being discounted far below that. And sooner or later, people are going to start realizing what he's capable of. And it might be too late for people if they don't grab him in the fantasy drafts right now. While you were here, hit that subscribe button down below. We have redraft content coming out of our ears at the minute. Shows with JJ Zacharyson, John Paulson of 444, Pete Overzet, Josh Norris, Hayden Winks of Underdog Fantasy. Loads of stuff to get you set up to win big in 2024. The next player we're moving on to, it's Jaylen Waddle. And Jaylen Waddle has been a very popular pick in this series. A lot of incredibly smart people picking Jaylen Waddle, which makes me feel good because Jaylen Waddle's a player I've been drafting aggressively all best ball summer. On Underdog, Jaylen Waddle goes at pick 19. But when you go over to the home league platforms, CBS 43, ESPN 50, FFPC 32, NFL 41, and Yahoo 36. This is a player who's had 3 1,000-yard seasons, over 100 targets in each of his first 3 years in the NFL. And particularly last year, that feels pretty good for a guy who battled injuries all year. Andrew, you don't have to sell me on Jaylen Waddle, but tell everybody else why they need to get on board with Waddle.
I will do my best. Scout's honor with Jaylen Waddle. For me, when I'm looking in the range that he goes with all the other receivers he's bunched together, there's upside cases to all these players. But I think Waddle has the perfect balance of offering a solid floor, but coming with an also extremely high ceiling. We've seen what this Miami Dolphins offense can do with Mike McDaniel calling the shots. Tyreek Hill has been an absolute monster, and Waddle has been right there behind him. Now, it hasn't worked out in Waddle's favor necessarily, especially last year when he was dealing with injuries. He only scored 4 touchdowns, but he still got over 1,000 yards. It just tells you how good this offensive ecosystem is for these wide receivers, where it's Tyreek Hill, it's Jaylen Waddle, and the running backs. That's who they get the ball to. And that's why so many guys last year, again, you didn't have to be super smart to be like, okay, who had the best fantasy team? It was, oh, how many Dolphins did you draft last year? That essentially came down to, did you make your playoffs? Well, did you have Raheem Mostert or Tyreek Hill on your team? Oh, well, then you probably made your fantasy playoffs. So I am trying to buy the dip on Waddle after he was injury plagued, because that's the only argument I see against him. Oh, he's always banged up. And currently he is dealing with something minor on the side. So just fingers crossed, Waddle will be okay. But I mean, he comes with a pedigree. He's a top 10 drafted pick. He's been with Tua for more than NFL years. He played with Tua in college and had success. So I just think Waddle, to me, he's everything I want in a upside pick. They paid him this offseason. The Dolphins are committed to him. The Dolphins defense is horrible. They have nobody left on their defensive line. You're going to see shootout after shootout in Miami, especially to open the year. And this is something that Jamie Eisenberg brought up on Fantasy Fest. I thought was a really astute point. Last year, they were trying to get Tyreek Hill 2,000 yards. They were really trying to do that. And I think that may have hurt Waddle in the process a little bit, because they were so focused on getting the ball to Tyreek Hill. If we see that level out a little bit, well, you could see 2 receivers going over 1,500 yards. And I want to be part of that, especially with Waddle. I think he can go 1,500 yards, double-digit touchdowns in the third round. Oh, sign me up all day.
Yeah, we had Josh Norris from Underdog Fantasy on the channel talking about wide receivers, and he mentioned with Jaylen Waddle that last year he had 23 catches for 306 yards across all third and fourth quarters, because They were passing at a really high neutral pass rate in the first halves, but then in the second halves, it dropped down to like middle of the league because they just took their foot off the gas. They were running the ball at such a high rate. And on the flip side of that as well, the Dolphins aren't going to score as many rushing touchdowns this year. I don't think Raheem Mostert at age 32 is going to score 19 touchdowns again. If he does, he's going to be the player that we all should have been drafting. But for me, Jaylen Waddle is a Pro Bowl talent, and I'll keep drafting him as often as I possibly can. Andrew, your last pick, the sleeper pick, the one that everybody should be scrolling down for, and you are going to have to scroll down. Rico Dowdle. The Cowboys have made so few offensive additions this year. All the headlines are about CD Lamb. And I think that's distracting away from the fact that Dowdle could be an absolute bargain this year. On CBS, he goes at 115. On Yahoo, he goes at 125. ESPN, 171. And on NFL, where my home league still drafts despite my best efforts, 216th overall. Like, hit me with the pitch for why you should be going way higher than 216th.
You're gonna look like the smartest guy in the room when you take Rico Dowdle in a draft, because half your league mates are gonna be, wait, who did he pick? Uncle Rico? We can draft this guy? I bet half the people don't even know who Rico Dowdle is. And honestly, I didn't know much about him until this year anyway. But with Dowdle, looking at this Dallas Cowboys backfield, we could see a lot of touchdowns. Last year, Tony Pollard was second to only Christian McCaffrey in terms of overall red zone touches. Didn't work out for Tony Pollard because he ran extremely cold and did not convert on those red zone touches. But the opportunity was there for a smash season for a Dallas Cowboys running back. You have Ezekiel Elliott as the incumbent starter who was brought back from the Patriots. And I think that the Cowboys are just looking for somebody to be better than Zeke. They know what they have with Zeke. He can pass pro. He can get the like 3 yards in a cloud of dust. He can catch passes, catch dump offs, whatever. But he's not adding anything. The dynamism from Zeke is gone. They know that. So Dowdle represents that explosive type of upside play of a running back, fifth-year guy that I think they're excited about. And I think with Mike McCarthy, he's talked about how he's seen everything he needs to see from Dowdle to kind of take that next step. And honestly, with Dowdle, look, do I think that he's an amazing talent at running back? No. I'm looking at the opportunity here, especially when the price is nothing. Like you just talked about, the ADPs are laughable. And that's why I think that there's no reason you shouldn't leave every draft with Rico Dowdle just to see how things play out. Look, it's a chance that they love Zeke and they want to go back to the veteran. Okay. But in the chance that they don't do that and Dowdle does take over this backfield, well, you're looking at a player that could finish easily as a top 24 running back, one of the highest powered offenses in the NFL that you got with essentially your last pick in your draft. So I just think that the price point is so spot on for Rico Dowdle. Look, it's taken a while, but even the best ball bros are finally starting to come around to Rico Dowdle. His ADP is starting to rise. And when the best ball bros are late to a player, well, it's going to take forever. Redraft's going to catch up in week 8. Oh, Rico Dowdle? Oh, I should grab this guy off the waiver wire. So for those reasons, Rico Dowdle, to me, I think he's a perfect sleeper candidate. You should leave every draft with him.
Yeah, and people throw around the fact that Rico Dowdle's not that big of a player, but he's a similar size to Tony Pollard. And I think you have to view him as getting the kind of Tony Pollard from a couple of years ago when he was there with Zeke Elliott. Maybe not someone who can hold up to 20 touches per game, but they're going to put Zeke in. Zeke's good in pass protection. Zeke can be a threat around the goal line, and maybe that eats in slightly to Rico Dowdle's ceiling. But Zeke is also coming off career lows in success rate in 2023. Didn't break a single rush longer than 17 yards on 184 attempts. Zeke might get some touches. Jerry Jones loves him, but I don't think it's going to take away from the fact that Rico Dowdle can absolutely be the kind of bargain that you need sometimes. We don't always need to hit it out of the park on every pick. Sometimes you're just looking for a player who functions well within your team. And that to me is Rico Dowdle, particularly when you look at the wide receiver room and go, okay, there's CeeDee Lamb who hasn't practiced and we're now 14 days away from the NFL season starting. There's Brandon Cooks, who's soon to be 31 years old. And then there's Jalen Tolbert, who people are putting money on to be this breakout wide receiver in year 3 when we've seen very little from him. I absolutely think that Rico Dowdle can be one of the steals of draft season. Those are your 3 picks from Andrew. And for anyone who's enjoyed this show, check out myself and Andrew every week on the Fantasy Pros channel, where we both have a lot of written work as well as the show we do together. Hit the comment button down below, though. Every single comment from a subscriber this summer gets entered into our giveaway. $100 in cold hard cash, 12 months free membership to all our premium content, including my weekly DFS column, Rich's Dynasty content, and much more, and a $25 voucher for our merchandise store. Andrew, what's one piece of work that people should be checking out from you before they do their drafts?
Well, I'm going to be hopefully releasing my perfect draft strategy once I have time to do it and I'm not prepping for a show or writing another article. So I'm going to put that out though. I'm going to make sure it's there for the people because that's where I'm just going to put all my everything in my mind about drafts. It's going to go into this one document. I'm going to review the things that I've written so far this year. You can just find me if you just search Andrew Erickson Fantasy Pros. You can at least find my rankings. Follow me on X at Andrew Erickson _. Been tweeting out a couple things every day. I wake up and my goal is to help somebody draft a winning fantasy team. That is my number one goal. So if you have a question, feel free, DM me, tag me, do whatever, grab my attention. I'm happy to help. I want to help. So let's go.
Truly one of the best people out there, providing great content and giving you loads of information you need. Go and check out our videos on this series. We've got JJ Zacharyson, John Paulson from 4 for 4 giving you their favorite picks, along with everything else on the channel. We'll be back very soon.